Welcome back, Taylor. It is a pleasure to have you here again on A Regenerative Future. And I'm just so excited about eco ag. I know we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that, but it's the 50th anniversary and I'm just so excited about it. I'll be there. I hope, I know so many of my friends will be there, so many of my students will be there, some of my mentors will be there. I hope that everyone joins us for that. But before we get into that, give us an update on the past year. It's been about a year since we last had an interview with you here.
Yeah, I feel a lot better this year than I did last year at this time. I think we have matured a lot as a business and a team, and we've built the team out. Acres was kind of like when you buy that old farmhouse and you have to remodel it and get it to a point where you can live in it, and now we're kind of at that point where we're hiring back some people and fixing just a lot of the operational and systems. But we're in a lot better place than we were a year ago. So it's all positive.
That's great. One of the things I wanted to ask also is about how is your grazing operation going?
It's good. We bought a group from South Dakota this year. So we brought in eight additional cow calf pairs, bought a new bull, and a couple other animals that will be sent to the freezer at the end of the year. So we pretty much doubled our herd. We've gotten great rain. And these animals, when they came in and they were grazing next to our original herd, it was kind of like, all right, these are what animals are supposed to look like. And, we've been working with a guy by the name of Steve Campbell, Tailor Made Cattle. He'll be at EcoEgg as well. And I think he's probably one of the leaders on genetics and genetic selection for grass finishing cattle.
Hmm.
Um, and so I challenged him and said, well, find me, a herd or find me, those type of animals. And he did not disappoint. So we hauled them in from South Dakota and they're gorgeous, gorgeous animals. But they're a little bit expensive.
Ah,
Everything is really, the cattle world right now is just everything's expensive.
hmm. I wonder if I hope there's more studies like the one that Dr. Alan Williams talked about last year at Eco Ag, where he compared the nutrient levels and the types of fat ratios and showed how, grass-fed, on is so much, it's like 85% more nutrient dense. And I just want to see that grow and that awareness grow. I hope they do more of those. Did you obviously.
Yeah, I think it's also like the Dan Kittredge unit. Like if we can get that to market and I think in the next 10 years you're going to see the technology move to a point where the consumer is going to have, a cell phone app taking pictures and registering nutrient density and the reason, vegetables and those types of products, I think they're probably closer to actually having that in the consumer's hands. But I think grass-fed beef would be so important because you'd be able to distinguish the difference in those omega-3 and omega-6 levels between grain-fed and grass-fed because grass-fed is kind of a hard thing to monitor. It's not, you don't really know a lot of the times if you're buying true grass-fed, just because of it's kind of a loose term. You can claim it. You can be USDA certified grass-fed, but people can also claim to be grass-fed and feed grain in the winter.
You know what I just realized is there's a possibility for this, but is Dan creating this so that you can have like a printout or label or something that shows the actual ratios for that meat? Because
From
if
my
we
understanding, yeah.
that would be because for a shopper who's like heart healthy, they're gonna go, well, I gotta buy the fish. The fish is expensive, microplastics in the ocean, and then they go, huh? Salmon of the land salmon? What is this joke?
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, they have the same levels? Well, I I haven't had beef in years, in some of these cases for these people. Like my dad, he stopped doing red meat, because he was like worried about that. And this flips
Yeah,
the script. This opens up well, reopens a market, for consumption. That's amazing if that's where we're going to end up.
it seems like that's where we're heading. And it's, obviously you'd be concerned about um the inconvenience that that may cause certain industries of, letting that technology get out because it would be disruptive. It would
Rightly
affect,
so.
the biggest problem with grass-fed market right now is the imports. And if you were actually able to distinguish the difference between true American grass-fed, grass-finished cattle and, I would assume some of these imports we're getting that are claiming to be grass-fed aren't the best quality. That a lot of that's happening still in feedlots where they're just eating pelleted forage.
If we could ban imported grass-fed beef, that alone, I think, would actually allow the market to shift. I think uh, banning all imports would be politically impossible right now, you know.
Yeah. Well, the
But
problem,
grass-fed is such a small market currently that, like, I think we could get that, protected, and then that market would be allowed to grow, and all the numbers would be rational, you know, and then we wouldn't be withholding people from putting their animals to the slaughterhouse, for meat packing. It's like we literally have people who are just waiting 3 years, and they can't even sell their meat.
yeah. At least in our area, the slaughter issue has corrected itself. We don't have those issues anymore. That was
That's
that was
awesome.
around COVID. It definitely was, at least 8 months to a year out. You'd have to get it scheduled. Um, I'm concerned with the true grass fed market in the U.S. because if these commodity prices stay low, it's just going to be difficult for us to convince a farmer to move away from grain fed. Because right now, it probably in majority of the country, it's probably cheaper to feed an animal over winter with grain than hay. I mean, that's how cheap commodity prices are right now. And it also then is better for the farmer in a certain way because they don't have to take that extended time to finish the animal. So you're giving them a cheaper supply of food and they get it finished sooner. Um, and then there's the whole pasture management and grazing management portion of it where it's obviously just easier to lock animals up and feed them full of grain. And right now it's very profitable because of the prices. And there is not that marked up value in grass. Those markets just haven't been created. So it's still, we always say it like find your local farmer and buy directly from them. I mean, that is the best solution. It obviously doesn't solve the huge issue that we have, but I mean, that is the best option where, you find a rancher or farmer that actually will let you come out and show you proof of the operation that they're doing.
Is there any way that we could imitate what we did in the past? So I'm a student of history. I was a history teacher, and you know, we migrated during different times of the year. We had, and so did the animals. So like the bison loop was the bison loop because they could go all the way up and then all the way down to Florida because they could have fresh forage throughout the year. So in
Yeah,
winter,
I mean
they're
that
just
that is the dream. There are people talking about doing it. Turn an interstate into a cattle drive, essentially. There would be,
if
the
everyone's
folks.
animal is tagged, could we just mix them? Or would that be
Yeah,
dangerous?
I mean, well, technically, we're already at that point where they're tagged if they want to travel across state lines. I would argue I don't necessarily want the government having a GPS tracker on my animals, but
No, no, no. I just meant tagged in terms of like that's a
right.
your animal. It could be branded. Like we have to make sure. But that idea of getting like everyone together and running these animals down, I mean, that's way more natural. And I know there's a lot of young men who would be totally excited by the prospect of getting on horses with dogs and like doing like an old fashioned like cattle drive.
Yeah, it'd be sweet. That would, I mean, that is the dream. There's the people I've talked to about it, because there are some people that are considering it. Like they have a property, say in Texas, and then they have a property in the northern hemisphere, or northern part of the country. There would be some sort of a transitional phase that needs to happen with the forage type. Like you wouldn't be able to just haul them down and then send them out to the grass. So you'd have to bring up the folks that I've talked to that have thought about it more deeply. They would actually have to ship up hay from that region and start them on that before they just dull.
Whoa.
The problem is, like, you look at a semi load of cattle. Not only is that stressful for them to be hauled that far, but you only can get 40 animals on
Yeah.
most semis. Like it's
Yeah.
just,
With Eastern and Western Texas, if you go one direction, they fatten up. But if you go the other direction, they actually like can't finish properly on the forage because it's just so wrong for their diet. So it's true.
yeah, I mean, that's a genetic, that's one thing we're finding with the more people I talk to about grass finishing cattle is it's a genetic thing for sure. Like I was in the last couple weeks, I went to Gabe Brown's and Joel Salatin's, and they're very consistent about their how they build their herds, and it's a very strict calling um, method that they have to survive on the forage that they have in their region. So that would be another challenge, like if you're switching up regions on them, and you know that's also part of the whole problem with the genetics that we have circulating in the country is they're being created or mimicked to have success in a feedlot, and that necessarily isn't the right animal to have success in grass. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
Gabe Brown's son last year only fed hay for 7 days in North Dakota. Like that is, I still can't wrap my head around it. That's amazing to have
That's
animals that can do that. But
but
that's a lot of time, and
you look at Sepp Holzer, and I know this is like a tiny version, right? But he's in the middle of winter marching with his pigs. And his pigs are as big as he, almost maybe bigger than him. And he's a giant man. And he has all these animals doing work for him in the middle of winter and then like pushing through the snow and getting the crops that were left there. And he's made burrows for them so they stay warm, when they're all together and there's enough of them to create warmth. So it does seem like we have the possibility to create hardier animals. No one's incentivized to do it.
it's definitely happening in our niche in our industry.
And I think those are people who feel like moved. They feel like the need for it. They also are trying to do it, in their operations, there's a need for it. But no, like there's no like market demand for like us, like for instance, like horses. Like horses are so messed up genetically and they need so many things. They die very easily, they get sick easily. Same thing with a lot of dog breeds. And Joel Salatin's talked about this. So many of the breeds that we have are, you've probably heard this before, are they look like the original breed, but they lack all the characteristics that made it a good breed because
Yeah.
each breed was specialized. So we really have to bring these things back according to that like philosophy, like make them work, do that work so that those genes stay alive.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing. And it's also epigenetics, a lot of it, what they're learning through the generations. Um, it's I think it's one of the bigger opportunities for people in our world too, is to build these genetics up and then to sell them to like-minded type farmers. We're not going to most likely impact the massive market that is like just conventional beef. And you don't really want to. Like you wouldn't want the feedlots just to shut off tomorrow. We'd have a major problem. But I think there's more interest in this. Like who wouldn't be interested in an animal that the only cost that you have is moving them and putting them on new grass. Like that
Yeah.
would it drives down the overhead so much. You can raise an animal so much more cheaply. Our number one, you know, expense is hay by far in this system. And the less and less hay that you can feed them, obviously the more profitable you're going to be. So I think it's easy to explain to people, but it also it takes a lot of time, and people don't like to see animals that are skinny. So then I mean, I definitely understand it from their perspective, where if an animal is struggling, especially right now, it's difficult to say like I'm going to just sell them and then, you got to try to replace them or
Mm.
in some way. It's the guys who have gotten their herds to the point of they're at capacity, and then um, they can truly call without any sort of issue because they know they have their new set of calves coming in that are going to replace them. And right now is a great time to call because you're actually getting paid for them well.
Wow. So, what do you think of the whole McDonald's investing in tallow and regenerative grass-fed beef?
What is it that they're claiming that they're going to do?
They're investing 200 million or something.
I mean, I will say technically McDonald's is interesting in a sense that they do produce most of their food on their farms that they control.
They want to shift it to that, to like tallow cooked grass-fed beef.
Yeah, I mean, that would be awesome.
That's Pete
If you could,
Terry's.
if you could actually get a place like McDonald's to buy in, which I would argue, I don't, it's difficult to argue. Like it's probably not more profitable in their current setting because when you get to the volume and scale in a feedlot setting, it's hard to beat it. We pay $1,200 to process an animal. They're at like $50. Um,
This is what I mean by economic incentive. The people doing this are doing this because they know it's right, because they know that this is the only way to get real food. And
yeah.
and it's part passion, it's part, so many of us have had health issues and struggled with things, and so we know the value of real good food, but the market's not there, and I just think that, man, if there's a way to protect it and allow it to
Well,
grow.
I think it's there on a superficial level right now, and that's why you see the corporate greenwashing starting to come in. And it's probably partially to do with, RFK actually getting some of these things. It's more mainstream than it's ever been. Do I actually think? I don't know. I'd like to see their farms, I guess. If they could actually make a change and truly do something where they're, getting to grass finished, grass fed cattle, I mean, that'd be amazing.
It would be. It
You
would
look
be.
at look at McDonald's prices now. It's not like it's that cheap. I don't know what the,
Their business model tanked. I think that's what happened. They rode it till the wheels fell off, right? They're like, we're gonna do the cheap food, we're gonna do the crap food, we're just gonna strip it all down. And now they're like, oh, we're
yeah,
screwed.
but they can't even do that. Yeah. And they are completely vertically integrated. Like they have control over their whole.
And if you get the
I'm
right
trying to look up the
person
menu right now. Like
at
what
the
is
top
the,
of a
okay.
vertically integrated system, you get like Bebo, right? You get these companies that are literally a family who are like, I feel like it's wrong to grow food this way. And then they shift their entire thing. It's happening, like Patagonia was the same thing. And each one has its own slant and its own thing and own contradictions. But these businesses are, especially the ones owned by individuals or families, they have pangs of conscience every once in a while, and they shift. And I've seen more and more of that.
Well, I
Uh,
think unfortunately a lot of it has to do with someone getting sick too.
yeah.
That seems to
Well,
be the one of the biggest driving factors of people that have come out of conventional, either dad or grandpa got sick or even them in some ways. These immune disorders that people have. and they can tie because once you're sick, I'm sure you start researching the causes, and it usually leads back to the food.
Yeah, yeah, the food, the water, or the environment,
So what do
mold.
you think would be the economic, because we can always talk about people doing the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing, but that's not going to push most likely
Marketing. It's education
majority.
and marketing. So, so
So
what
where's
we
the financial
do,
incentive come from?
the financial incentive comes from them recognize getting educated. The public has to get educated on the difference between these things. And if they see one at, or because I mean, with food, you're either gaining or losing. It's either gonna tax your system, cause harm, or it's gonna help. There really is no like in between. And so it's like most of the food, our body has to work extra hard. You have to take extra amounts in to get even a small amount. And we're getting mostly NPK. We're getting what they put
Yeah.
in. And then we're getting the wrong ratios of fats. We're missing all these amino acids, all these nutrients. And plants would be the phytonutrients. And we're living like a shadow of a real life. And if we can depict, all right, so I have a family member who literally had struggled and then literally got put on a really good natural broad spectrum, but also high dose vitamins. And they immediately felt better and their life got amazing, but it was because the food had no value in it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are irritated and cranky and feel awful because they literally haven't eaten. And just like with our kids are cranky, better get some snacks in them. It's like adults are the same way. We get hangry. And even when we're eating food, our body's still hungry for essential things. And so we never get rid of that baseline irritation quite often. I'm not saying this is everyone, but I am saying that there's traditional medical like evidence that is linking certain minerals and deficiencies or toxicities to certain problems medically, mentally, emotionally. All these different things are linked. So I would create a focus on stories around people whose lives have been altered by the food they ate and have that food specifically be like the punchline. And it was because it was regenerative. And
Right. But
it,
who's doing this? Who's pushing out the information?
we have to individually or create like how Mark's part of that consortium of farms.
Hmm.
We would have to create something like through a nexus like Acres. Acres would be a great nexus for this, where farmers participated and helped like fund a promotional campaign. And so if you become part of the voting body of it when you put a certain amount in, and then when we present, the ad campaign for that year, we can vote on it. And then those funds will be then allocated to that ad series. And I mean, this is what the milk industry did, right? Got milk, right? They literally created, and they also did it through the government. They did lobbying. We don't need to do that necessarily. We need to create a mandate from the people, which is way stronger, and needful because top-down changes have a way of switching every 4 years.
Well, and
Um,
you can't trust it because
right.
they're
Everything's a
yeah, that
political
that was
football.
yeah, that was my point is like something like the government would never get behind a educational campaign that would uh have problems with their donors.
Right. And so I
Yeah.
would do something within our community. I would make it like a fundraiser at like Eco Ag, and it would be the start of this group, effort to and people would be like, "Well, come to my farm. You would advertise their farm, you tell their story, you would connect that story to like someone who ate their food, who started healing and was on their healing journey. And those two stories together, I mean, look at like Ryan Sullivan, like amazing guy, amazing family, beautiful story, right? And then you pair that with their food, like the process of being regenerative has healed them in many ways and made their lives better. But then to have that go into other people's lives and that like virtuous cycle where everything is great, like from the soil all the way up through the farmers, through the people, into the market and into their family, my family to your family. Those kinds of stories are anchors. And that's what I would do because it's an uphill battle. Everything's noisy. Like the world is so full of noise. Like advertising anything is like 10x harder now, and I don't see it getting any easier. So and the thing is, what you would do is you'd create this commercial. We would have like a dedicated person or someone to do that at Acres. They would then put it out. They'd be boosting it or put paid, sponsorship kind of things on different social media. But then you would give that video to all those people in that group and any maybe any of the registered farmers in the acres community, and then they could use that. But
Yeah.
it'd be better if you kept it exclusive to the people who have donated money, because that it's them showing I'm part of this community. I'm supporting this. And you want them to be able to have that ability to have recognition, that ability to to be generous and to be part of it. So I would make it so that the commercials and have all these different memes that you build, all these different things, and then you share it with all the community. And it's designed not to be like an Acres ad, but to be an ad for this for just, you know, a particular thing. And you could have like meat, you could have vegetable, you could have all the categories, and then it would be all dedicated to each one of those. So that's how I would do it. And it would be all under like um a new name or something like, I don't know, regenerative life, um, or something like that. And it would be regenerative life in the corner, just like the got milk thing, and then it would just be the focused on it being healthy food.
Yeah. Well, it is. I mean, consumer education is the most important thing to drive the market. I mean, I would say farmer education is probably second to that. Um, but yeah, it's there. Those stories are out there, and I think it would be a good opportunity for someone to go capture them and distribute them.
Yeah, and I think Acres
And
is positioned to do that.
yeah, I mean, we're yeah, you're trying to create a lot more work for me. It's like where I see us where I see us being focused on is the farmer education piece, and specifically, especially right now, is the economic uh, systems and repeatable things that people can show and then do. I think we have a problem in the regenerative agriculture niche that there's a lot of ignoring of the financials in a lot of situations. And I think that kind of comes from the documentaries that, like I think they're kind of like the lead in
All
for
big
a lot of
farming.
people. Yeah. And the economics just are usually kind of pushed to the side on that. But there are people that are having success, economic success, even in this environment. And that's who, we're looking at is we want them to come tell the story to other farmers to give them the blueprint to make the change. Because I think that I think it's the farmer's job to educate their consumer, if that makes sense. Because if you really wanted to fix a lot of these problems, it would be this generalized local exchanging of goods, like, kind of what we were meant to do. And then that falls back on the farmer educating their customers, if they actually had customers, instead of just one large person that they sell everything to.
Do you know, like maybe you knew these someone in your past, but do you know someone who's like a really, really, really great guitarist, but can't write their own music?
Not really. I wasn't in the music world like you. But
Or
I know a lot of great farmers who can't market their product.
yeah. And
Yeah.
that's the thing is it's like, you know, they're all so different. Like my son can write the music, he can play the music, he can record it, he can mix it, he can master it, which almost no one does the mastering part. But he can do it all, and they're actually so dynamically different. And you have to like switch hats completely to do really different parts of that. And that's hyper rare. You know, even what I do, you know, where I'm writing the book, I'm editing the book, I'm the one getting the book printed and picking it up, then I'm selling them, you know what I mean? And then I create my own courses where I'm doing the video, the editing, you know, I do it all. But that's very rare. So it's like I just think that there's going to be an imperative, even if Acres doesn't do it, there's going to be an imperative in this space to create something that creates more awareness with the public and represents us. I think the power is to, and this is why I did our soil, right? The power is to represent us as a community so that people are like, oh, it's a scene. Oh, there's this ecosystem of all these different things. And, you know, I like, you know, Genesis. No, but I like yes. And it's like the whole Prince, Michael Jackson, like Pepsi, Coke. If as soon as there seems to be a scene, there's legitimacy to it. Just like, you know, the grunge scene that was like the last scene in music. And there's no geographical location, you know, anymore for anything, it feels like. And we have to
Yeah.
create that. And so that's why I think eco ag is so important because we gather and we create that community connection.
Yeah, it's developing this community where other people can interact and do business with each other that have like-minded ideas is probably the most valuable piece of having these conferences by far. I mean, obviously the information is really important and people get introduced to a lot of different ideas, but the fact that you're in a place for 3 to 4 days with other people who are like-minded, like I just did the math the other day. We have 1,000 people coming. Usually, the average person is controlling 400 to 500 acres. I mean, that's what last year's event was, which is a lot. Obviously, some people are there that are controlling, 100,000 acres, and that drives that average up. But that means that we have over 500,000 acres in that one conference that are being managed. That is the same size. It's actually bigger than the county that the event's in. And that's 1.2 billion over 1.2 billion. That's essentially the same amount of acres that Organic Valley farms, which they're a $1.2 billion a year food business. So the amount
Wow.
of we're literally talking like $1 billion of business happens technically in that room amongst those people. And like if I realized what it was before I bought acres, when I was trying to get started and just craving for connections in the industry, I 100% would have gone, but it was never presented to me in that way. You're always presented it to you as like, come learn about like soil health, but the amount of business connections that can be made there. I mean, we consistently hear stories about it from last year. That's the powerful piece. That's the thing that I guess we're most proud of, that like you can really impact people in just 3 to 4 days like that.
That's amazing. I would also say that there's something special about our community. Everyone's really supportive. Everyone, even if you're like doing something completely different, you're Nigel Palmer and fermenting things in beer. You know what I mean? Or you're John Kemp and dialing things into very hyper specific. It's it's such a great community. Everyone's really respectful and warm, and there's such an excitement that it feels like there when I was there last year, it felt like there was gathering momentum from the moment I arrived. It just felt like there was this because I arrived early, and so I was there and I'll be there again during those first day classes. It's Dr. Don Huber, it's John Kempf. Folks, if you're coming to this conference, you need to go to the beginning of the conference, because the, the value is unbelievable. So, and
It is. Do you want? I'll list so like
yeah,
the
yeah.
first 2 days of the conference are called Eco Agu. So these people are doing full, and Matt, you did one last year. So it's a full day workshop. So I think a lot of times you go to conferences and you hear people talk for an hour and you don't really get the full information from them. And I definitely understand people being frustrated with that. So we have the first 2 days are these full workshops. So here's the list is ridiculous. Dan Kittredge, Mark Shepard, Steve Campbell, who I was just talking about cattle genetics, Gary Zimmer, John Kemp. That's day one. And then Don Huber is doing 2 days of a glyphosate, like pretty much where there's 16 different speakers talking about glyphosate and different options that you have. We call it like the soggy sauerkraut studies. I don't know if you've ever talked about it on the podcast. We can talk
I
about
talk
it
about it all the
more.
time to everyone I possibly can.
I know
Every
it's mind blowing.
Yeah, and you guys just literally put that out into the public. The story of soggy sauerkraut is literally on Acre's website, and everyone can go and read it. It's
It's by far the most popular article we've published online
because
by a
it's
lot.
such a big problem, and it's such an amazing
Yeah.
solution.
Yeah. So then day two, Rick Clark, who's obviously one of the one of the only people that truly does no-till organic. Then Dr. Arden Anderson, who is a human health guy, has his own medical practice, but then also was a soil scientist before he became a medical doctor. Um,
Doesn't he work
that
with Ray Archuleta and Todd Harrington?
probably,
Yes, I
yeah,
think so. I was told
yeah.
to go study his stuff.
So he was one of our like it's our 50th annual, so we're bringing a lot of the I call him the OG Acres guys. Like he used to be, uh, he published his books 20 or so years ago, and they're still really popular. But that would be more of a human health. Like, what is the true connection between the soil and our human health?
I
And
have to
he's
be there for that.
he's a soil scientist, and that was working in ag, and then became a doctor in his 30s. Like he had already had a career in agriculture, and then became a medical doctor.
Genius.
Yeah. Neil Kinsey, who is probably the closest person to, Albrecht, bringing him back for the first time. He's doing a full day workshop. He's the author of Hands-on Agronomy, like get in the weeds of soil minerals. Like if you want to come learn about balancing your soils, Gary Zimmer day one, Neil Kinsey day two is pretty hard to beat. And then Joel Salatin is talking for the whole day on building a successful business.
Oh, see, this is impossible. How can you choose?
That is the biggest problem. I
That
mean,
is
fortunately, we record everything and you can get the recordings after the fact, but it is difficult to choose. I mean, we made those first 2 days are ridiculous. It's definitely not normal.
it's so exciting. Well, it's the 50th anniversary.
Yeah, we had to go big, and we have to try to go bigger than we did last year. Um, but you got on the list is, Will Harris, Helen Attow. I don't know if you ever read her book before. Steve Diver, who is a brilliant guy from the University of Kentucky.
And he won that award last year, right?
Yep, yeah, he won the Eco Egg Achievement Award. Nigel Palmer, like you mentioned, Jeff Poppin, um, James White, who I know you're a big fan of.
I've never met him in person. We've been working together for
Oh,
years.
really?
This is so good. Oh my word. Thank you, Taylor. Ah, this is gonna be awesome.
Nasha Winters was another really popular human health who's wrote the book Metabolic The Approach to Metabolic Cancer, or
Hmm.
she's researched treating cancer was essentially like what we just talked about through food. Um, then there's only like 15 more after that that you probably would recognize a lot of them. But Jason Mott, Keith Burns, oh, Gabe Brown, forgot to mention him.
Oh, it would be great to see Gabe and Will again. It was the
Yeah.
first time I've gotten to meet them, and I think this year. Oh, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna bring my copy, or maybe I'll buy a new copy of Dirt to Soil so I can lend this one out. But I want to get it signed by Gabe because he's the only one that I cannot displace on the Amazon charts. And it's always like both. It's like his book in paperback and the audiobook. And I'll like be like, bam, third. And I'll like bounce off. And I'll go back to 16. But like
Yeah.
every
Well,
time,
he did do the best. I mean, that's the book that got me hook, line, and sinker. It was like, oh, this
best
makes
title
tons of
ever.
sense.
Best
Yeah.
title ever. And then the stories back it up. That's the thing that's like it promises big and it delivers.
Yeah. And I made the mistake of calling his soil dirt with him at his farm the other day. Got a tongue lashing. And for people that don't know, Gabe's made it public. He talked about it last year at the conference. He's going through, obviously severe health issues. I think he said this is the only conference he's doing this year. His travel is cut down to pretty much zero, except he went over and visited the king a couple weeks ago.
Okay. That's
So he
amazing.
went and or the king or the prince, I don't know whichever one is technical right now, but he went and stayed with the prince in the prince's house in
Well,
England.
that's a good sign. That means, he's out and about and excitement like that probably really helps. I mean, you know, so much of our health is driven by, the spirit, that we have and the people who care about us in our lives and express that care. And I can't help but think that, coming to some of these events and places, gives them a boost because we all care so much, and I know we all try to let them know.
Yeah, and I think it does. All these guys get energy from it. It's the type of people they are. They love to see these large groups of people who are making the shift. And like, how many people do you think last year when we asked them, was it their first time at an EcoA conference? And it was over half the room. So they always see new people every year, and they thrive on it. But yeah, I mean, Gabe, he has like treatments 4 times a week. So his travel's cut down. He went from traveling 280 days a year to I think he's only traveling 20 or 30 this year. So it's going to be more and more difficult to see him in person in the future years. But he's made it a lot. He's made it longer than what they gave him originally. So and he's doing it through food.
Yeah, that's awesome. Something that you said there about like half the people that were there were new. I think it's going to be hard for you to see because you took the company over in a dip and you're like, now it's more stabilized. On the outside, you took something that was like, I didn't see acres. I didn't see, advertisements from acres. I didn't, like you revived it. And I think that's what you're seeing is all those new people are for you and from you. And
Well, I don't know about
so
that, but
well, you took it over, and then the purview, like the ability to see acres, like just raised. And
yeah,
I know so many of my students in my courses are talking about how they're going to be there this year.
yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate it. That's very kind. I will say, like, if you ever buy a company, you are better off buying one that had a lot of really goodwill built into it, which Acres did. Like all of these guys that are speaking at it, Um, like they're still doing us a favor because Acres did them a favor years
Yeah.
ago. Like Joel sit and, tear up over the first time he spoke at an Acres event because it was like the Super Bowl to him. And look at where his career has gone from there. But this is where a lot of these guys got their starts was, the Acres Conference because they'd built up such a goodwill over the years. I mean, it was started in 1971. It was kind of the only show in town for a long time. And we're
In
just
many ways.
fortunate. We're just fortunate to be able to, steer it now. Um, and I think it just needed it needed a new idea, a new vision for today's age, which is a kind of resemblance of, what a lot of farms need too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, this is the conference that essentially created John Kemp. His dad,
Why?
his dad went and
Yeah.
saw like the pesticide talk and then tore up his pesticide card and was sick to his stomach that night in the hotel and said to John, "We are never selling poison ever again. We are never contributing to this." And that was indelible. This is like young John Kemp watching his dad like set a line in the sand and never, never. And it's amazing. That's the power of this kind of event.
Well, and John's a perfect example of someone who went to the events then and didn't just go to go. He made all the connections. Like he became a consultant for Gary Zimmer. He became a consultant for Jerry Brunetti, who's a guy that I don't, have you read Jerry's books?
Which ones?
He's got let me just make sure it's correct. You've heard of Jerry Brunetti before, right?
Yes.
So he is like probably the one guy that everyone will talk about that you wish you would be able to meet now. He wrote the book The Farm as the Ecosystem. He died of cancer. I think they gave him 3 months to live and he went like 16 years. So his whole end of his times talking at Acres conferences were kind of about beating cancer through
Wow.
food.
Wow.
But a lot of what was created in this biological world came like the biological business sector of this world, like what John's in. A lot of those came from the ideas of that came from Jerry Brunetti.
Wow.
So if you talk to anyone like, like Tanio is obviously a very ingrained old name. The most people point to Jerry Brunetti. Like Gabe just said last week, probably the smartest person he ever heard speak was
Mhm.
Jerry Brunetti.
Wow. So those talks, there's an option when you sign up for EcoAg this year to get access to those older EcoAg talks, right?
That's part of our magazine membership. So if you just become a magazine subscriber and member, you get you get inundated with so many talks. And yeah,
Yeah.
Jerry's part of that. I mean, it's
So
we
it's ACO
have
TV, EcoAg TV.
yeah. Yeah. I will say we're working to get to the point where we have a true app that properly houses all. I mean, it's kind of in similar like if you go through Matt's type of courses, that's kind of how it's set up right now. Um, but yeah, it's 50 years because we even have Charles Walter's first talk in 1975 in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So much was known. And they may not have had the word for it, but they had the method for it. And that's the thing that people don't understand is it's like if you're a student of the regenerative history, you'll realize there are things that have been done for over 100 years that are smart, that are regenerative. And many of these guys, starting 50 years ago, were the people that were the holders of this information. And the reason it reached us and it turned into all these other things that we now have names for, and you know what I mean, we know the microbe involved, but it was started by these people who followed practice and
Yeah.
trial and error and results, and even when we didn't have the tests, so many of them had theories that were totally spot on. So it's really, really great to go back and like kind of ride through the history.
Well, like anybody who talks about soil balancing, minerals, which I do think is the easiest way to get to the point where your soil is performing for you without having to have a bunch of different added costs and inputs, is to get your soil balance. Like the people like Gary Zimmer, Jerry Bernetti, those principles came from the guy named Albrecht. And if it wasn't for Charles Walters, who started Acres, getting what's called the Albrecht papers, that stuff could have been lost forever. Albrecht was a professor at Missouri and was essentially getting ran out of his profession because what he was teaching. Yeah. And we actually have, so I don't know what is there. I think there's 8 of them right now. We still have 9 through 15 that need to get published. I'm hoping next year they get finalized.
Whoa.
Yeah, there's still 6 more that never were
Holy
published.
cow. That's
So,
amazing.
and that's where Neil Kinsey, he was one of Albrecht's last students at the University of Missouri. Um, and that's a guy that, if it wasn't for Charles Walters and Acres grabbing him before, because I think he died like not that long after they got the papers, and he was getting shoved out of, I mean, that was industrial agriculture
Mhm.
was silencing him in a way. And then this little startup magazine publisher got a hold of all of his life work essentially and it turned it into these books. And that is I mean, what has been created from that is remarkable.
That's absolutely amazing. I didn't know that was the beginning. Wow. Wow. Yeah, Missouri can be rough. Missouri.
Yeah.
I lived there.
Yeah.
It's beautiful though. And the land, the soil, I love Missouri. The rains, the way the fog holds around those rounded hills, all the rivers everywhere. But then socially, sometimes things can be rough there. So definitely,
Well,
that's,
he wasn't the only one. I mean, it's still, you look at a lot of these Alan Williams got ran out of the system too.
oh yeah.
Just yeah, I mean, he was a professor working in that world, and he started, asking the wrong questions and saying the wrong things, and that's why. But then he created Understanding Ag with Gabe Brown, and I mean, that's a pretty amazing business that came from that.
I didn't realize he was the other person in that. That's so fascinating. Yeah, no, I definitely think, I mean, when I asked Dr. James White whether I should pursue my PhD a few years ago, he was like, no, like you're getting way more done without all this stuff over here. Keep going.
Yeah,
And I was like, oh, that was eye-opening. And so, yeah, no, I definitely value the kind of education and sharing and growth that we experience in our community.
yeah, and
Wow.
it's like Joel. We're just finishing up a short from our time with Joel, and he said it best. I mean, I thought about it like it, but he said it the best. He said that the government agencies, all of the extension offices, they're always 15 years behind what we're talking about at Acres conferences because you have to go through the, double blind placebo testing, the studies, and we got all these crazy people at Acres just standing up and talking about what they did last year in their field.
Yeah.
And we don't have that. We don't have that pressure from outside because it's people just sharing their experiences and you still have to go take it in and put it into your context and try it for yourself. There's no one promising you success from what they, taught you. And I think that's the attitude you need to have when you come to it though. But we also don't have, if you think about media and how easily it can be shifted, and I get it now being in this business, like if there was this thing, and I'm sure that happens in conventional ag and it happens in the universities, we know it for a fact, that if these giant corporations give you money and then you have to direct your message in a certain way, we don't have that. Like nobody is, that is the cool thing about this industry is all the speakers, all the people that we work with, there's not one, even all the companies that go to the trade show and sponsor us, there's not one that has ever pushed us to say, hey, make sure you talk about this or make sure you don't talk about that. And I guess that's probably the power of being in smaller media.
Yeah, no, it's or the real media, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, real education, real media. I love it. So,
But think
eco,
about easily that could have shifted. Like if they had actually like listed acres for sale or something, and the wrong people got it, like you could easily morph that message.
yeah.
I mean, I'm fortunate. Thank you to the previous owners. Like it wasn't like a public sale. I knocked on their door essentially and asked them to sell it.
Huh. Wow. That's incredible. What an incredible perspective. That's amazing. So where can folks sign up for EcoAg this year?
You can go to acresusa.com, just click on the EcoEgg conference, or the URL for the sign up is conference.eco-ag.com.
And it's December 1st or 5th?
December 1st through the 4th. So it is, part of that is intentional in a way because it is during the week. And I think we want to attract people who are willing to, commit to something like that. You have to, it's a commitment. I totally get that. I appreciate everyone that comes because you're taking multiple days out of your life and your life is definitely busy. But I think we get really high level folks there.
Oh yeah. No, this year is absolutely wild. I
Yeah.
hope that folks all sign up. I hope that you come. I hope that it's sold out and I can't wait for it. I'm really excited and honored to be there.
Appreciate it, man. We're looking forward to having you. Matt is also the loudest and most energetic person in the crowd there too. So somebody should come and try to match his intensity throughout the conference.
Let's do it.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Taylor.